They never thought you'd actually leave. They believed that with one look, one cold message, or a half-hearted excuse, you'd come crawling back trapped in guilt, confusion, and longing. But this time you didn't, and that broke them, in ways they'll never admit. Here's the truth. A narcissist doesn't fall apart in the face of your anger. They crumble in your calm. They panic when their tricks stop working. They spiral when your face no longer reflects fear or dependency. In today's video, we're uncovering 9 clear signs a narcissist shows when you've truly defeated them. These aren't just surface behaviors. These are cracks in the mask they've worn for years. From fake indifference to manipulative love bombing, each sign is a desperate attempt to regain control over someone who finally woke up. If you've ever felt lost, manipulated, or forced to question your own reality, this video is for you. Because knowing these signs isn't just insight, it's power. So hit that subscribe button, turn on notifications, and stay with me until the end, because you're not just walking away from a toxic relationship. You're reclaiming your life, and you are so worthy of the freedom that comes with it. Sign 1. They suddenly cut off. Contact. Not because you don't matter, but because you can no longer be controlled. One of the clearest signs that you've truly defeated a narcissist is this: they disappear. Suddenly, coldly, without warning. They go silent as if they never existed, leaving you confused and searching for answers. But don't be misled. Their withdrawal isn't an act of power. It's a reaction to defeat. When a narcissist realizes their usual manipulation tactics, guilt-tripping fake apologies, love bombing followed by devaluation, no longer sway you. They run out of leverage. They're not pulling away because they're strong. They're pulling away because you're no longer their emotional supply. You've stopped begging them to stay. You no longer over-explain yourself. You're not walking on eggshells to keep the peace. And that quiet strength, the calm refusal to play their game, throws them into disarray. Don't be surprised if they pretend to be indifferent, acting as though you never meant anything. Admitting they were defeated by your growth would shatter their ego beyond repair. So instead, they retreat. Not to free you, but to protect themselves from the truth. They've lost control over you. To salvage what's left of their fragile identity, they craft a new narrative that they were the one who left. That you were too sensitive, too controlling, or emotionally unstable. Anything to preserve the illusion of dominance they can no longer sustain. In reality, this cutoff is a strategic retreat. They're evaluating, do they still have a way back in? If not, they'll stay silent. But if they sense even a sliver of emotional vulnerability, they might return disguised in kindness, pretending to have changed. But remember, someone who disappears the moment you grow strong never loved you. They only loved your weakness, your compliance, your forgiveness. So, if they vanish when you finally stand up for yourself, let that be your confirmation. Don't wait for closure from someone who thrived on your confusion. Their absence is the clearest sign that you've broken the cycle. And that isn't a loss, it's victory. Sign 2. They try to smear you behind your back because they can't stand the light you now radiate. When you begin to heal, grow, and step into the most empowered version of yourself, the narcissist doesn't sit back and clap. They won't celebrate your strength. They won't admit that you've won. Instead, they take the low-road gossip, slander, and twisting the truth behind your back. Because what enrages a narcissist the most? It's not you yelling. It's not you crying. It's you thriving without them. When you stop clinging, stop compromising, stop letting them control your emotions, you trigger their deepest fear, becoming irrelevant, invisible, powerless in your life. And in the face of that collapse, they resort to one desperate move, destroying your image to protect their own. They'll say you're selfish, ungrateful, too sensitive, or emotionally unstable. They'll rewrite the story, painting you as the problem, even as the abuser. They'll reveal the secrets you once protected and turn your silence into a weapon against you. Why? Because if they can't control you, they'll try to control how others see you. This is a passive-aggressive form of retaliation, and it's just as dangerous as overt abuse. It targets something intangible yet essential: your reputation, your credibility, your sense of dignity. They can't reclaim your heart, so they try to poison the narrative. But here's what you must remember. Anyone who needs to fabricate lies about you is already defeated by your truth. Your success, emotional, spiritual, or personal, is a mirror that exposes their emptiness. And the brighter you shine, the darker their resentment becomes. But you don't need to defend yourself. You don't need to fight back. Because truth doesn't need to shout to be heard. Let your life speak for itself. Keep showing up as your whole grounded self. Because the ones who truly know you will never need an explanation. And those who choose to believe the narcissist's lies, they were never meant to walk beside you in the first place. Sign 3. They start mimicking you because they want to reclaim the lead role you walked away from. At first it feels strange. The same person who once belittled you, mocked your dreams, and dismissed your values is now copying you. They change the way they speak to sound like you. They start posting inspirational quotes. They share ideas about healing and empowerment concepts they once ridiculed you for. They even adopt your style, your routines, your vocabulary. But don't be fooled. This isn't growth. This is identity theft. When a narcissist loses control over you, when you stop playing the supporting role in the drama they carefully constructed, they attempt to reclaim the spotlight by becoming you. They can't bear the reality that you're now admired, respected, or worse, in their eyes, happy without them. So what do? They construct a distorted version of you and wear it like a mask. Why? Because the narcissist has no stable sense of self. They don't build identity from within. They fabricate it from outside sources, images, roles, impressions. And when the old version collapses because you've withdrawn, the only way to maintain their illusion of control is to borrow yours. This is especially common when you were someone they admired, envied, or drew supply from a deeply empathic, radiant, grounded person. They don't want to learn from you. They want to replace you, not to grow, but to manipulate how others perceive you. If they can become a convincing version of you, they believe people will forget who the real you was. They're not transforming, they're shape-shifting. And what's most unsettling is, to outsiders, this act can look genuine. They might appear woke, healed, changed. But you who survived their harm know the truth. It's not remorse, it's performance. And this time, the character they're playing is you. But here's the good news. Authenticity doesn't compete with imitation. The real you doesn't need applause to be valid. And the more they try to copy your light, the more their emptiness becomes impossible to hide. Sign 4. They try to reignite the romance, not out of love, but as a final attempt to regain control. It always begins the same way. A sudden message, a familiar tone, words laced with nostalgia, "I've been thinking about you." Or worse, maybe we were meant to find our way back. To the unaware, it may seem like redemption. To the empowered, it's just another tactic. When a narcissist senses that their grip on you has truly dissolved, their instinct is not to let go gracefully. It's to rewind the script, to pull you back into the fantasy they once sold you. And the fastest way to do that is through the illusion of rekindled love. They may present themselves as changed, softer, more aware, even apologetic. But behind the rehearsed vulnerability lies a simple motive to restore the imbalance where they had the upper hand. Understand this. Narcissists don't revisit the past because they value the relationship. They revisit it because your absence disrupted the ecosystem of their ego. Your silence is too loud. Your strength is too unsettling. So they romanticize the very bond they once sabotaged. They package pain as passion. They call trauma complicated love. And if you're not grounded, it's tempting to believe them because there was a time when you wanted that love to be real. But you've changed. And so their return doesn't feel like hope. It feels like a test. Because now you can see the pattern. They don't miss you. They miss the version of you that tolerated their chaos. They miss the you that bent over backward for harmony. They miss the you that hadn't yet realized your worth is not defined by their affection. When a narcissist tries to reignite the romance, it's not because they've awakened. It's because you have. And here's the beauty in that. You no longer need their validation. You no longer crave their version of love. Because what once felt like magic now feels like manipulation. And the moment you recognize that difference, you've already won. Sign 5. They say you've changed, but it's not a compliment. It's a complaint. As you begin to heal, reclaim your boundaries and stop reacting the way you used to. The narcissist will often say something that sounds harmless on the surface. You're not the same anymore. At first, it might seem like just an observation. But listen closely. That sentence isn't spoken with admiration. It's laced with frustration, resentment, and fear. Because you have changed and your growth threatens their control. You no longer cater to their emotions. You don't stay quiet just to keep the peace. You don't feel guilty for asserting your needs. And in their eyes, that makes you the problem. When a narcissist says you've changed, what they're really saying is, you're no longer easy to manipulate. You've stopped playing the role I assigned you. It's not a statement of fact, it's a veiled accusation. It's their way of saying, you're not operating by the old rules anymore. And that unsettles them. Narcissists only welcome change when it benefits their ego. If you become more accommodating, more forgiving, more silent, they'll call that maturity. But if you become more grounded, more discerning, more self-respecting, they'll call you cold, distant, or heartless. Because in their world, any growth that doesn't include submission feels like betrayal. Yes, you've changed. You're no longer the person who abandoned yourself just to preserve a dysfunctional bond. You've learned to stand without shouting. You've learned to walk away without apologizing. You've learned to love yourself, not to fight them, but to honor what's sacred, your worth. And now, because you no longer react the same way, they can't reach you the same way. Your change signals one thing. The script is over, and they're no longer the one directing the show. So the next time they say you've changed, smile. Because it's not an insult. It's confirmation that you're evolving while they're still stuck in the same tired game. Sign 6. They start playing the victim. Because it's their last card to win back your empathy. When every other manipulation tactic fails, when you no longer react to their silence, no longer fall for their faux apologies, and no longer get pulled into their nostalgic traps, the narcissist reaches for their final move. They become the victim. Suddenly they're exhausted, wounded, betrayed by everyone, or going through a dark emotional crisis. It sounds raw, vulnerable, human. But in reality, it's a carefully constructed narrative designed to strike at the most tender part of you, your empathy. They know you're a deeply feeling person. They know you once prioritized others above yourself, and now they're banking on that old programming. The part of you that wants to help, to heal, to fix, to turn back on. Because if they can't make you love them, hate them, or miss them, they'll settle for making you pity them. This is where the script flips completely. The manipulator becomes the wounded soul, and you, the one who endured so much, are cast as the cold, heartless one who walked away. And if you're not fully awake, you may find yourself stepping back into the cycle, explaining, comforting, sacrificing, only to end up back where you swore you'd never return, giving everything to someone who only knows how to take. But this time you see it clearly. You realize that their pain isn't a call for healing, it's a trap dressed in emotion. Someone truly committed to change doesn't play roles. They take responsibility. They seek real help, not emotional rescue missions. They don't turn your compassion into a tool for control. And here's the deeper truth. You are not responsible for healing the one who hurt you. Empathy does not mean self-erasure. Love does not mean abandoning yourself to make someone else feel better. So if they suddenly become fragile, tearful, and emotionally volatile, don't mistake that for awakening. It may simply be another mask crafted when all the others have failed. You've come too far to return to the role of spectator in a play you've already seen end in pain. Sign 7. They publicly flaunt a new supply, not because they've moved on, but because they want you to feel replaced. You might think that when someone truly moves on, they do so quietly with grace, with respect for what was, and with a focus on genuine healing. But that's not how a narcissist operates. When your silence becomes louder than your words, when your boundaries cut off their control, they panic. And they write a new script. In this script, you must become the one left behind. So what do? They go public with a new relationship. Fast, flashy, intentional. Not because they've fallen in love, not because they've healed, but because they need a new prop to provoke a reaction from you. The new supply isn't about emotional connection, it's a psychological weapon, a carefully staged performance saying, "Look how easily I replaced you. Look how happy I am without you." To a narcissist, relationships are not about love. They're about image control and perception. They know exactly what they're doing, posting curated pictures, exaggerated captions, over-the-top affection. And sometimes they even mirror the kind of relationship you once begged them for, affectionate, expressive, ideal. But deep down, you know the truth. None of that existed when they were with you. Still, you may find yourself hurting, asking questions like, what does this new person have that I didn't? Was I never enough? But here's the truth you must hold on to. Their public display isn't a reflection of your worth. It's a reflection of their emptiness. Someone who's whole doesn't rush into a new relationship to prove a point. Someone who's real doesn't weaponize romance to get attention. They're not in love. They're performing. And this stage was built for one reason, to make sure you're still watching. But you've evolved. You no longer need to be seen to know you matter. You understand now what's real doesn't need to be flaunted, and what's fake never lasts. Sign 8. They turn on themselves because when they can't control you, they begin to collapse internally. Here's the part no one tells you: when you truly break free from a narcissist, not just physically but emotionally, they don't just let you go. They start to fall apart. No one left to manipulate. No one to reflect their false self back to them. No more emotional supply as predictable and accessible as you once were. And the emptiness becomes unbearable. Suddenly you might see them unravel. One day they seem energetic on top of the world. The next, they spiral into reckless behavior, toxic relationships, substance abuse, overwork, or deep emotional numbness. Why? Because they don't know how to exist when there's no one left to control. A narcissist doesn't have a stable inner identity. They rely on external feedback on your pain, your forgiveness, your attention to define themselves. And when you withdraw that fuel, their psychological structure begins to crack. This isn't something you should feel guilty about. You're not responsible for the collapse of someone who repeatedly destroyed you. In fact, it's the clearest sign that you've truly defeated them. Not through revenge, not through confrontation, but through your quiet refusal to play the game ever again. You didn't need to destroy them, you simply chose yourself. Yes, they may continue their performance. Yes, they might seek out new supply, build new illusions, chase new attention. But deep down, they carry a truth they'll never admit. You were the one who saw through the mask, and you were strong enough to walk away. Sign 9. They get angry at your happiness. Not because you did anything wrong, but because you dared to live a life beyond their control. One of the most painful ironies of dealing with a narcissist is this. When you're broken, they feel powerful. When you're hurting, they feel important. But when you're genuinely happy without them, they get angry. And it's not simple jealousy. It's something deeper. It's the terror of realizing you've truly escaped. Because if you can experience peace, joy, and wholeness without them, then everything they believed about their own significance, their power, their special role in your life was nothing but an illusion. And nothing threatens a narcissist more than discovering they are no longer the center of your universe. You begin to care for yourself again. You do the things you once put off. You reconnect with friends, pursue your passions, smile for no reason. You don't post to prove anything. You don't live to send a message. You're simply living, and that's what drives them mad. They may react with subtle jabs, smear campaigns, or passive-aggressive comments. They may accuse you of being fake, happy, selfish, or hypocritical. They may even reach out under the guise of concern, because they can't stand that you're thriving without their influence. In psychology, this is known as collapse of control, when someone who once fed off your dependence is forced to face the fact that they no longer have a say in your story. But here's the beauty. You don't need to respond. You don't need to explain. Because you've reached a level they can't touch anymore. Inner freedom. Not freedom because you found someone new. Not freedom because you leveled up. But freedom because you no longer need anyone to validate your worth. Their anger doesn't mean you're doing something wrong. It means you've risen far beyond anything they ever expected. If you've ever asked yourself, am I strong enough to walk away from a toxic relationship? These signs are your answer. You don't need their confession. You don't need an apology. You don't need their acknowledgement. Because the way their behavior shifts is the clearest confirmation you've stripped them of the power they once held over you. You didn't scream. You didn't fight back. You simply stopped. You chose healing. You quietly exited a game where they were always the one writing the rules. And in that silence, you reclaimed yourself. They may try to replace you. They may rewrite the story. But they will never recover the light you once brought into their world. Because that light came from truth, from a heart that loved with sincerity. So if you're on this path right now, hear this. You are not broken. You are not weak. You are simply learning how to love yourself again after loving the wrong person for far too long. Hit that subscribe button, turn on notifications, and share this video with someone who needs to hear it. Because every time you choose healing over revenge, truth over illusion, you're rewriting the narrative of your life, and you are so worthy of that freedom.